FDmuscle.com. I'm here with the strength and conditioning coaches from LGM Performance in South Elgin, Illinois. This is Chris. We're going to go through a really great stretch that's going to keep you guys safe and healthy, both in the training environment and on the fighting ground. So take it away, Chris.
All right, thank you. So Nikki came to us and asked us for a really good stretch for the anterior hip, the front of the hip. And we can get really in depth with all this anatomy in there, or we can just give you one good stretch that kind of addresses it all. Everything except for the lower back and the psoas area, which is inside. But we're going to go through the meat and potatoes of this in the front of the hip today. So we have Kurt here, one of the coaches and the owner of LGN, and also Jason, fireman in Elgin. And we're just going to go through this couch stretch in two different ways so you can see both the more advanced option and also the regression that's a little bit more easy to do at work or at home. So Kurt's going to get in the first position, and all we're going to do for this stretch is make sure that his toe goes on the wall. He's going to try to keep his foot in line with his heel. All right. The closer his knee is to the wall, the more intense it'll be because it's going to wind up that whole back leg. In the first position here, all he's going to do is push his hips forward and try to get a good stretch through the front of his hip. He can squeeze his butt if he wants. He can just rock his weight forward. As long as he's getting that good focus stretch on the front of his hip, that's what we're going for. So if he's doing this before he's working out, we're going to go to his end range of motion, then pull back out of it and roll back in and out of that 5 or 6 times, then switch legs. If this is after he's working out, that's when he can sit in the stretch for 15 to 20 seconds and then switch legs a few times too. So don't get those too confused. This is a really good stretch to do before if you do it correctly, but I don't want you guys sitting in the stretch and then going and doing explosive movement. So position 2 with this with Kurt is just chest up. Okay, his arms are going to stay down, and what we're looking for here is that his rib cage stays down and he's not arching his lower back, his mid back to get into the stretch. If we start doing that, that means the hip has stopped moving, and now we're using our spine to compensate for our lack of movement in the hip. Position 3 is just arms overhead, trying to keep that rib cage pinned down. It's a little bit more of a struggle. So now Kurt can hold that for a little bit, he can press in and out of it, or he can switch legs and get out of that if he needs to. The second option, what Jason is going to show, is a modified one on the chair. He's going to put his knee into the chair, much like Kurt had his knee on the wall. First position is going to be just a supported lunge. Same thing, he's going to push his hips through. All right, rib cage stays pinned down. He's getting the same stretch in the front of his hip. Again, if he's doing this before a workout, he can roll in and out of that. If he's doing it afterwards, he can sit it for a little bit longer. Position 2 is just shoulder blades back, the rib cage still pinned down. Right, he's still pushing through and feeling the stretch in the right hip. Position 3 is arms overhead, rib cage stays pinned down. So we see here that if you have any kind of mobility concerns, you can always limit the stretch a little bit if you're hyperextending your back. What we don't want to do is, if you tighten the hip and your hip stays closed, and then arch your back up, because now we're defeating that purpose like we talked about with Kurt. So that's a real good stretch for you guys to do. If you want to do it on the floor, if you're comfortable. If not, you can have a chair at the station, just jump on a chair. Take 2 or 3 minutes. If it's something you have lower back pain with, you can go through that 2 or 3 times a day. A lot of times when we see front of the hip dysfunction, if we're using athletes, we see a limit in their potential, so they'll never run or jump or explode as well as they can. And if we're talking about adults, we tend to see lower back issues. Lower back issues that can go up to the neck and shoulders or down to the ankles and the knees. So post your comments to Nikki's blog, FDmuscle.com. Come over to LGMperformance.com and our Facebook page and check us out, and I'm sure we'll see you guys in future videos.